All right. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining our webinar series, another episode of Userguest webinars. So today we'll cover availability, rates, and distribution. So for those of you who just joined for the first time, the idea of these webinars is quite simple, is to provide the industry, the hoteliers, and the community overall, is to provide guidance during this difficult times. So the idea for us is to give you as much as possible in terms of our knowledge, expertise, share all the technical knowledge that we might have, marketing skills, best practices that we acquired during the years. And so hopefully that you'll be able to improve your skills as we move closer to recovery if things get better for all of us. So that's kind of the idea. All right, so just quick rule before we start. So if it's one of your first times using Zoom, please feel free to ask questions at any time. Either you raise your hand or use the chat or the Q&A section to ask any questions. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have during the webinar, or at the end of the session, we'll have a 10-minute session as well. All right, so your speakers and panelists for today. Asil, co-founder of Userguest, will be our panelist for today. We'll take in your answers, maybe chat with you directly.
Hello, everybody.
Nasra,
Thank you for being here.
Expedia, well known in Bali as the revenue management guru, will be one of the speakers. And at Userguest is our head of sales in Indonesia. Savina, ex-Booking.com, current account director at Userguest, also will be.
Hi, everyone.
And myself, ex-Expedia, ex-Well Hotel Marketing, and co-founder of Userguest. I'll be one of your speakers, and I'll actually start. I'll be the first speaker for today's session. All right. So before we start with the actual topics, we wanted to briefly explain what we do at Userguest for those of you who don't know us or never heard of Userguest. Userguest is a tool for hotel websites. So what we do is smart notifications that appear on a hotel website, which will entice the hotel website visitor or user to make it to the next stages of the booking process and complete the purchase. So, well, the way it works actually, it's there's an algorithm that decides which notifications have the most chances to lead to a booking, lead to a conversion, and which will depend on the visitor situation and the hotel situation, meaning from the user perspective, where they come from, the device they're using, is it the first visit, second, a lot of different factors. And at the same time, from a hotel perspective, what's the situation at the hotel, what they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to push in terms of bookings, long-term, short-term, and so on. So that's how Userguest works. We provide also a dashboard with a lot of very valuable information and insights that can help the hotelier make the right decisions. So we'll quote, I think, throughout the webinar, parts of the dashboard and best ways of actually getting data. So that summarizes a bit what we do at Userguest. In terms of the webinar series, we already covered quite a few things. So we discussed websites, the most important metrics. We discussed digital marketing channels, Google Ads, remarketing, Facebook ads. Today we'll discuss availability, rate, parity, and distribution, and how it impacts your actual website. So it's always related to the website and the performance of a hotel direct bookings, website, and booking engine combination. All right. So today we'll cover these topics: so availability, rate strategy, distribution, and we'll finish with takeaways. And I mentioned previously, we'll leave at least 10 minutes for a Q&A session. So if you have questions that you didn't have time to ask during the webinar, please just write them on the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll cover those when we finish the session. Right? Let's start. So just to emphasize a bit and lead a bit the conversation for today, this is our framework, so how we see website metrics. So the traffic comes from specific sources, whether it's Google, Google Ads, Facebook, TripAdvisor, and many other sources, many other websites. Once those that traffic or visitors make it to the website, that's what we call visitors, or we'll quote it as well as users. So today, what we want to focus on is not the website part, but actually the booking engine. And the main part of the booking engine, the main metric for us, is the conversion rate. So the ability to convert your lookers. So once your visitors have made it to the booking engine, we would call that lookers. How we can convert lookers to bookers, and all the things that can impact the conversion rate from a booking engine perspective. So there's a lot of different variables that impact that conversion rate, and we'll discuss it throughout the webinar. So we've listed kind of different variables that have a huge impact on this conversion rate. One of them is available rooms or your inventory, quite simply. So if you don't have anything to sell on your booking engine, or you have quite limited inventory, the chances to convert are quite slim because there's nothing to sell. That's simple. One of the other factors that influences a lot that we see throughout our partners and people using Userguest is the rate flexibility. Meaning, if the rates are not that flexible, the cancellation policies are very strict, has a huge impact on the conversion rate. Something that we see, and we'll discuss a bit later, is that when hotels have the most flexible rates, or even provide the option to pay later, to book now, but pay at the hotel, we see the highest conversion rates. This is something that we see as well on Expedia, on Booking.com, on all the other OTAs. That's why they've chosen to go that route, because it increases quite a bit the conversion rate. Another variable is the offers, how convincing, how attractive are your offers, or it's quite targeted to your audience or not. And the last part is the rate parity. Can they find another price elsewhere? This is a very important component that we discuss a bit later when we cover the distribution.
So Isham,
let's start.
We have actually a first question.
Visibility, what's important is to ask the right questions. So understanding your inventory and how your rooms are being sold. What here is, what kind of rooms are being sold? What type of rooms? How is, on which channel this happens? Are the people coming from which distribution channels you selling those rooms? Is it on Expedia? Is it on Booking.com? Is it your direct website? Is it through bed banks and all the different sources available out there? When do you sell those rooms, and to which distribution channel? Does it happen during the high season, the low season? So these are very important questions that you need to ask yourself. And very important as well is the markets. Some markets are very heavy on a specific booking engine versus others. Let's say if you want to target after let's say the recovery, we expect the Chinese market to bounce back faster than others, or South Korea or Taiwan or Hong Kong. So if you want to target specifically the Chinese market to get people to your website or to generate bookings, Ctrip or Trip.com should be mainly your focus at that stage, knowing that Europeans will use more Booking.com or Expedia and so on. So these are very important questions you need to ask yourself to really understand how your rooms are being sold. Use your past data to then understand what's being sold when, and by who, at which specific times, and on which specific channel. I think we might have a few questions already.
Yeah, can you hear me, Isham?
We cannot hear you, Asil.
Okay, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't think we can hear you. Oh, we can. Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can.
I hear it. Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, we actually have a first question, asking which variable is actually the most important on the booking engine. You mentioned several ones: the rate parity, availability. So if you had to rank them.
It's very hard to give a specific figure. I think all of them are quite important. In terms of what we've seen have the most impact, and the only one that we've been kind of able to track is the flexibility of the rates. So having very flexible cancellation policies, or even pay now, book later. Book now, pay later type of rate. So the hotels that have that option actually have the best conversion rates, regardless of the booking engine they're using. This is something that's quite consistent across all the different hotels and type of hotels that we work with. If
Thanks.
that answers the question.
Yeah.
All right. So moving to the next part is focusing a bit more on how to manage your channels. So once you've identified how your rooms are being sold or being booked, you have to think about it. How can I better manage my inventory? And that takes you to the thinking a bit more about the finances part. What's more profitable? The combinations that are more profitable for you. So something to keep in mind and focus on is, or the OTA is helping me sell everything. Can I sell some of it myself? During low season, what distribution channels can I use to sell as much as possible? Versus the opposite, during a high peak season where there's a lot of demand for my rooms, how much can I sell myself directly? So these are the important questions to ask yourself, and think about the different scenarios where you're the most profitable. So whether you provide 80% to the OTAs, as much inventory allotment to the OTAs or the other distribution channels or not, this is the way to look at it. So based on the specific scenarios and the previous questions we covered, should have the right tools and kind of answers to guide you in this part, how to better manage your channels and how to better manage your inventory. Ultimate goal, obviously, is to sell as much as possible through your direct channels, but also is to keep the highest occupancy rate as you can throughout the year. So this is, you can sell 30% on direct during the low season, but if your occupancy is 50%, this is not the right strategy. So really need to think about combination of occupancy and the highest profitability for your hotel. Do we have any question at this stage? All right. So we move to how to optimize that inventory. So your booking engine conversion rates really depends on the availability that you have, and if you can sell rooms or not. So there's different things to think about. In this specific case, how to optimize inventory, it is in case where we have prior to the crisis in the status quo where our occupancy rates are at decent levels, is how to manage high occupancy versus low occupancy, high season versus low season. So the idea here is to ask the right question. Do I have any room to sell in the short term? That would dictate as well your marketing strategy in the short term. If you don't have much to sell, let's say the upcoming week, the upcoming month, or the upcoming 8 weeks, already start focusing on directing your traffic, directing your communication towards selling your early birds, your advanced purchase rooms. And that should be your overall marketing strategy. There's nothing to sell at the short term. The opposite should happen. If you have a lot of to sell at the moment in the short term, the last minute should be your main priority. How can I push more the last minute offers? Which market should I target if you want to get last minute bookings? In that case, you should target more domestic, short haul markets, and so on. That dictates a bit your strategy in terms of marketing, and as well as the overall communication. So when you create the offers, those are the questions you should ask yourself, and that's how we would optimize our inventory using our offers and using kind of the marketing techniques and the different marketing channels. So create the right offers, which we'll cover it at the next part. Do we have any questions before we move on to the next section?
Yeah, so we have a question from Bali. Someone is asking what is a good booking engine conversion rate? I think we already discussed this in the previous webinars.
Yes, exactly. So this was covered on the first webinar, actually. So we say a good conversion rate would be around 3.5% to 4%. This is strictly your booking engine conversion rate. We're not talking about the overall conversion rate. Once people land on the booking engine, how many of those would book? We say if 3 people, 4 people start booking, this is a very good conversion rate. If it's lower than 1.5, you should see if your problem is rate parity, is lack of ability, or just your booking engine not performing well enough. All right. So here, before we move on to the rates, we'd like to discuss, obviously, how to speed up recovery and what to focus on to make the most out of it. So a few just kind of insights and suggestions would be keep your dates open as much as possible. So we've seen, you'd be surprised from different partners and hotels that they actually block their long-term availability. So we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. But if you keep your dates open, you have chances to get some bookings in. And the idea also is to provide visibility, not just on your website, but across all channels. Even if users go on booking.com, on Expedia, at this stage, any booking, anything would work. If it comes from high commissions or not, you should have that the mindset of any booking is good at this stage. You need to speed up recovery and start getting bookings in. And this is the way to look at it. And most of all, one of the main suggestions and recommendations we can give is make it as flexible as possible. So if you can have 0 cancellation policies, that would be amazing. So to reassure the user, so if they can still put in bookings, commit a bit to come to your hotel. But if things don't pan out, if for that specific market they're not able to travel, it's fine. But at least give them that option to be able to book your hotel, whether it's on Expedia, Booking.com, or your direct channel. So those would be kind of the recommendations for now. As I mentioned previously, the other best practices that we shared regarding availability, that would apply more when things recover. Those are kind of best practices to kind of put in perspective your availability, your inventory, with your marketing and website performance. The next step, we'll discuss the rates and how the best practices in terms of creating rates and offers. So Savina, please take mic and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Hisham. So yes, in this section, we want to talk about the rates and some of the best practices that we've noticed for our clients and the industry. So as you know, the pricing strategy is one of the most important things for your conversion rates and for how your hotel performs. So here are some of the things that we definitely think that you should keep in mind when it comes to pricing strategy. The first thing would be to focus on providing value and benefits to your clients rather than just dropping the prices down. So giving some kind of discount is always great, but make sure that you list the benefits for your clients, and especially what is the value that you provide for them when they book directly on your website. The other thing that we have already mentioned a couple of times, and it's especially important now because of the COVID-19 situation, is avoiding strict cancellation policies. As Isham just mentioned, it's better to get a booking, which may or may not turn out to be a guest, than have no bookings at all. People would definitely try and book things that have flexible cancellations, so that if the situation for some reason in their country hasn't normalized and they're not allowed to travel, they would be able to get their money back. And another good practice right now is book now and pay later. So make sure to drive as many bookings right now as possible for future dates. In our experience and what we see from our clients, these are the policies and the rates that drive the most bookings and have the highest conversion rates. So we definitely recommend applying them to your hotel. Another thing to focus on is really to don't overcomplicate the offers. Make them as simple as possible and make them easy for the user to understand. If you don't have a unified way of presenting your offers, if they differ from one another too much, it might be very confusing for the guest to pick the right rate. And if you offer maybe more than two, but like 3, 4, 5 rates per room type, this can overwhelm the user with choice, and they won't be able to make the right decision quick enough and complete the reservation. So try to keep 1 or 2, 3 rates maximum per room type. Just another thing that we've mentioned in the previous webinars was about the booking engine, how to optimize it for conversions, and it is always make sure that you are actually displaying room types instead of rates. So when the user goes to your booking engine, they see the room types and then they see the rates that apply for this room type, instead of showing them rates, because this turns out, if you show them rooms first, it turns out that the conversion rates are much higher on the booking engine. And another thing, last but not least, very important, is understand your audience and create offers that match their behavior. So have a look at your data to make informed decisions about the rates that you need to be promoting on the booking engine.
So Savina, we actually have a question from Thailand. So asking if it's relevant to create, well, you actually already started to answer this. So if it's relevant to create a lot of different offers, so everyone can maybe find the one that is suitable for him, or should they make it very simple, like 2 or 3 different offers to, what would be the more efficient way?
We do recommend to simplify the offers and not overwhelm the users with a lot of choice. This is something that we're actually going to cover now in the next section, which is really base the rates that you're offering on the data that you already have. Have a look at your top performing markets to actually make sure that you're offering the type of rates that they would be most likely to book. So in the example that we see here on the slide, these are screenshots from our dashboard. So this data is available for you. For those of you who use Userguest, you can find this information available on the dashboard for your hotel. So in this case, we see room types. So what are the most booked room types for this particular market? In this case, we've given an example, Australia. So we see that the suite is over 60% of all the bookings. And then we also see what is Australia's lead period. So in this case, we see that they book in advance. So in this case, it would make sense to push for this market, to push the suite for advanced purchase rate. So this is something that we recommend. Really base the rates on what are the room types that are mostly booked, what are the offers that are mostly booked, what are the lead periods for your target market, and this would help you to really create the right offers for you.
So you would recommend actually to display a different offer depending on the market, but like, is it possible to do that like on the booking engine or on the website?
If your booking engine allows you to do something like this, yeah, then yes, definitely try to customize the offer depending on the market. If your booking engine doesn't allow you to do this and to customize the offers depending on the user location and IP address, then just have a look at your most booked rooms, have a look at the general performance of the website and the general lead period for your hotel, and this is how you come up with the best rates for your hotel.
Thank you, Sabina.
All right, so another very important thing that we wanted to cover is the price parity. You know how important it is to actually have the same rate displayed on your website as on the OTAs. Of course, a lot of people find your hotel either from your marketing initiatives or through the actual OTAs themselves. So if they see that the OTA rate is lower than the rate on your website, of course, these people will go and book directly, and you will have to pay commission, which is up to 20% of this revenue. So we really recommend that you police the OTAs and make sure that they are offering the same rate as you are on the website. Another very good practice is to offer additional discounts. So not discounts, I'm sorry, additional benefits. So you might have the same offer as on the OTA, the same rate, but if you actually provide additional value to your customers, they will definitely go and book directly with you instead of the OTAs. Another practice that we've seen from the big groups, and if it's something that you can apply, that would be great, is that they give additional discounts if you register as a member. So this is something that allows them to display even a lower offer than the OTAs, and it's something that has proven to work for them. So it's something that you can consider in your marketing and rate distribution. Okay, I think, do we have any questions for this part?
Yes, so we have a question. I think it's more related to the previous slides.
Mm-hmm.
So which offers do you recommend the most?
So once again, I would say you have to really look at the performance of your own hotel. But in general, there are several that we recommend that you always have. So one of them would be the early bird, so that you can capture future bookings. Another one would be the last minute offer, normally targeting short haul markets, domestic markets in particular. If you're located, for example, in Bali, traditionally they book a last minute as compared to early bird. Another one that works is the stay longer, pay less. So if you offer, let's say, stay 3 nights but pay 2, this tends to work really well. So these are 3 that we always ask for hotels to have available. And then you can decide which one you want to push for certain markets. So you have them available. And for example, if you use Userguest, you can target specific markets with only this specific offer. So you can just show the last minute one to the domestic market and say and show the advanced purchase one, let's say, to the European market, if this is your long haul market.
Perfect, thank you, Sabina. All right, so we move to the next section. We'll cover next distribution, and Ginasra will take us through it.
All right, thank you, Icham. Can you hear me clearly?
Perfectly.
Okay. In addition to Safina remarks with regard to what you have to pay attention on the package that you are building it, I'd like to add one comment with regard to the importance of also looking at your competitors' cancellation policy, because you're not only measuring up to your audience, but you are also look at the competitors in terms of rate and the cancellation policy. And who knows that the cancellation policy of yours could be more restricted than your competitors. So again, look at your competitors' cancellation policy and adjust accordingly when necessary. Right. Today I'm going to speak about the distributions. It is also very important to look at the distribution channels in your property. And as you see here, traditionally, we have offline business and online business. On your left side, you have traditional wholesalers who are distributing your rates and availability from wholesalers to operators. And then on the other side, on the right side, you have the contracted OTA, like what you have it already, like so-called Expedia, Booking.com, and etc. And then as technology increases, people are doing their business, there is a third party that plays into a part. And this is very critical point when talking about the rate disparity especially. So you have the XML rate that comes from from one of your travel agencies or the wholesale or the tour operators. You give them a contracted rate or static rate, but then this static rate leaks into the online or to the world, and people are looking at, and the contracted OTA in this case is Agoda, Booking, or Expedia, takes it as the rate that they are selling. Bear in mind that in your contract rates with these OTAs, there is a clause that stating they will post or they will sell the rate that is cheaper that they can find in the online. So making sure that whenever you are updating your rates, whether it is online or offline, they are selling at their own line. But then we find out later on, in this case, is that the third party already taking the opportunity. The first party that I'm talking about is the non-contracted OTA, the so-called AMOMA, for example. Yeah. So, for example, they take the inventory from hotel beds, you know, sheet trade sometimes, and they're selling it publicly, and that makes or that creates your rate become disparity, and not only your wholesalers are complaining, but also the other agencies might be also complaining. And what the worst scenario will be that your revenue is going to be less and less. So pay attention. So whenever you are updating your rates and availability, not only to update it on the channel managers and then believe it that everything is all right, but making sure you double check your availability and rate and they are selling properly. So again, be sure that rate disparity is not happening, but I know it's very much uncontrollable. Only to make sure that whenever you are finding a rate that is not should not be sold on public, making sure that you are raising the issue to those who are issuing the rate. And it is, I know that it is very much complicated, but at least you try to remind those persons or to those wholesalers who are leaking your static rate to online. Next, please, Dicham. So basically, when dealing with your distribution or when managing your reservation, your distribution, you have to make sure that your direct channels or the contracted OTA are the one that you should be paying attention on. You have to make sure that in terms of availability and rate, they are competitive, not only they are better than others, but also providing value as Safina already mentions. As meanwhile, for your uncontracted OTA and bed banks, as I said earlier, you have to watch it carefully and making sure that they are not appearing. If they are appearing, then you have to raise the case to those who issue the rate, and making sure that our direct channel and contracted OTA are always be increasing. Next, please. Thank you. So during this unprecedented time, we know that everyone is waiting for the signal of when the demand is going to be back. But we all know that while the market is still very much frozen, but we see some lights on the tunnel. For example, like when the China already decreasing in terms of their COVID-19 casualties, but we are seeing Chinese travelers are starting to look to making reservations in their homeland. So with that being said, I believe also in your own respective country, the first market that are going to be back is your domestic market or the local leisure market, because they are eager to travel anyway. Based on the research that I read, the first wish that everyone want to do in terms of this activity when the lockdown is already been lifted is to travel. So traveling to see their friend, traveling to see out of these routine activities, and that's all about traveling. But for sure, this is domestic market. We all know that corporate, for example, are still resisting or holding off their traveling policy, because again, they still put a priority on work from home, and they have also suffering in terms of revenue. So it is very unlikely that they will be traveling for the corporate market, and especially for the MICE as well. You know that groups and etc. are still being pending for the month, and probably the latest that we can see when the group is back, at least for Q1 in 2021. So it is very critical that you push attention your own leisure domestic market, and by doing this, you have to maintain your advantages over the OTA. Again, Hichams or Safina already mentioned it, the critical point of having the value add on your website. Not only the rate is parity, but also you add up with the value, because value added is the only reasons for the customers to book to your online. if you have an equal rate between the website and the OTA, for sure, most likely that they will book through your OTA. Reason is simple. OTA offer them the loyalty, not only the point, but also the pricing. So whenever you are competing against the OTA, for example, even when you put the rate is equal already, but with their meta search campaign, with their commission cutback and etc., they will always be finding ways of being cheaper compared to the other channel. So by doing this, making sure that your website not only competitive in terms of rate, but also providing additional value, because this additional value cannot be found in any other OTA. Yeah, so that's your very critical point to ensure that the direct channel is your priority when the demand is back. Next, please.
Thank you, Ginasra. That was very relevant. We have actually a question saying that is it then should the hotels cut their marketing budget for foreign countries? Like, do they have to only focus on domestic and cut all the rest?
Being present online is very critical. However, I do also understand that due to no revenue coming in, of course, you don't have any budget to spend on. So spend whatever you have wisely. And as we are targeting for domestic, I would assume that domestic will be the one that you're paying attention, and yes, used to do still the marketing activities.
Yeah, that would be the priority. Thank you, Ginasra.
If I can add one more thing. So we discussed previously the booking lead time. So we don't know, we don't have any visibility on when the crisis will end. So that it's a bit of an unknown. But something that we know based on the data is that long-haul markets, they have a very long booking lead time. On average, the US is close to 100 days. Australia, 90 plus days. UK, looking at 85 to 90 days. This is quite far booking windows. So you need to kind of prepare as well for the recovery of the international markets as well. So I think you should definitely focus right now on the short term, focus on domestic. That's more likely to bounce back faster than everything else. But at the same time, you need to keep a bit of budget, still invest in a bit on your visibility for the long-haul markets that when they bounce back, they'll be able to find you. And the good thing right now, if this crisis, there's still some positives, that there's very limited competitiveness for the ad space. So everything, your marketing budget should take you further than it usually does. So less budget can still give you a good visibility for your international markets. All right.
Thank you.
Please, Ginasra, go on.
Yeah, again, I want to re-emphasize the importance of value adds. Most of hotels, when it comes to their website, they put these value adds on the second layer, even on the third layer, or even in the booking engine page. Please review your website and making sure that this value is clearly spot on. Whenever your lookers come into your website, and they will find the first thing first is your value add proportional. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ginasra. We've listed a few takeaways from the whole webinar. So the idea is really to put in perspective availability, how you set up your rates and your distribution, the effect that it has directly on your own website, on your own direct bookings performance. But everything is actually linked. So understanding your inventory data is very important for your own website and as well for your marketing. So knowing when you should invest more in marketing versus less. Manage and optimize your channels according to that as well. So once you've understood your inventory, how it goes, make sure you optimize it as much as possible to increase your revenue and profits, whatever makes more sense for you. Looking at occupancy rate as well as your profits and the ADR and other metrics. Provide as much value as possible. Make it easy for your visitors to book and be as flexible as possible. So less room rates, less different type of offers, very simple offers to understand, and keep it flexible in terms of cancellation policies. And if possible, even book now, pay later type of policies, able to do those. Then create your offers based on your customer behavior. So making sure that those offers that you have created, not just in terms of they provide value, flexibility, and simplicity, but they are catered to your actual audience. Who books the most your hotel? Who has the most chances to book your hotel in the future? Take into account the crisis, how things are or going. If you have to be catered more to domestic market, then make sure that you have offers that reflect more the market. And last part is really be able to try to control your rates as much as possible. As Ignacio mentioned, with your own distribution, making sure that your uncontracted rates are not displayed and the meta search undercutting what you're actually doing and affecting directly your website ability to convert. If your price is always more expensive on your own website, chances that you get the bookings are quite slim. So that summarizes a bit our webinar, and hope we were able to provide value. After this, we're open for questions, so please feel free to ask as many questions as possible regarding availability, best practices, rate, or even distribution. And if you have questions as well on how to link this in terms of marketing, how to market your website, or how to set up your offers on your booking engine, the best practices, please feel free to ask. We have another 10-15 minutes.
Okay, so we actually already have a couple of questions. First one is, so they're asking if it's relevant to invest in traffic acquisition right now during this period. It's a good question.
Yes, definitely good question. We kind of answered that partially, but I think to summarize it, yes, it is still valuable to do it at this stage. You need to make sure that you do it in a smartest possible way. One way would be really focusing on starting to build awareness for your domestic market if this is not something you're strong in. So bring in domestic markets to your hotel. Another option could be already start planning your early bird offers, making sure that you're already focusing on the next possible high season. So if things improve, maybe December around New Year's, there might be recovery. So start planning things ahead. Always stay in on top of their minds. So that's how you build awareness and you keep some kind of awareness in the marketplace. So of course, we're not saying spend a lot, but keep some kind of visibility online. That would still help you in the long run.
Thank you, Isham. Thank you. Yeah, I guess it's this is the right time to spend the budget wisely, and you really should be careful to not waste it. So really focus on your top markets and obviously the domestic market. So we have another question. This was regarding to the booking engine conversion rate. So someone is asking, what if the conversion rate on the booking engine is not good? What are the solutions for them?
Well, if we work with a lot of different booking engines, and we work with a lot of hotels as well. So a lot of times we see decisions being made not based on data, but actually based on pricing. So choosing a booking engine based on price is not usually the best strategy. Even choosing a booking engine based on how easy to use is not always the best strategy. What the most important part is the actual metric, the conversion rate of your booking engine. Is it generating revenue or not? That should be the real question. Then the best booking engines, they tend to have also fairly easy to use, but not as much as some of the smaller ones that don't have as many features or not as complex. So the answer is, well, you should be thinking about changing booking engines. If your booking engine is too low, if we're talking about less than 2%, then you should really consider that part. If it's around 3.5%, 3%, there's room for improvement. So managing better the things that we mentioned today. So your availability, better rates, better pictures, better offers, better cancellation policies, and so on. That would help you increase the conversion rate as well. That answer your question.
I guess it does. Thank you, Hisham. So we have another one, which is actually a very good one. So they're asking us, when do we think the situation will go back to normal?
Nobody knows. So there's no, it's not something that we've communicated much on. So give predictions of what will happen. So that's a big unknown. It's a huge question mark. It's on everybody's mind. So I think the only thing that we could recommend is just try to be ready when things bounce back. That's it. So that's why we've kind of initiated the webinars, is to provide kind of a framework, share the kind of priorities, best practices in the industry. So during these times, you actually take your time to look at your data, what happened previously, how your customers behaved, what are your metrics, start to build up that thinking. When things get back to normal, hopefully the sooner the better, you'll be ready to make the right decisions. You'll be equipped with the right tools to make the best decisions and set up the right strategy for your hotels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Ginastra, can you update us about the situation in Bali? Like, what do you think? When do you think it will go back to normal, or when? What are the news from the government?
Well, unfortunately, I have only the bad news, but the government already issued a decree to stop people traveling until 1st of June. Therefore, it is very much knowing that actually the fact that we will not see people coming in, and especially when the government still closed the airport due to no travels can be flying. One thing that I also want to add is actually every country situation is different. Indonesian government predicts that the curve, the peak, will be sometimes in July or August. But let's not focus on when the situation is going to back to be normal, but more to spend your time wisely in terms of what you can do if you are still working in the hotel, in your hotel. In this case, is look at your current setup in your PMS, for example, your rate plan or your room type. Look at the room type that is currently sitting on, and see the production, their productivities, and also review your rate plan, the current rate plan that is never been booked. So why they are staying still there, and also some of the packages that are sold currently in the website as well. Review them and make something that are more creative. Try to find your guest persona, what your guest preferences is, and try to be out of the box, because the world is not going to be the same like yesterday. Everyone is looking for something new, and that also happened to your guests. Everything will be personalized. So think of something that is more personalized for your future packages. Not only like the previous one. For example, I've been in industry for 23 years, and I've still seen, for example, the honeymoon package sitting there on the website. Yes, honeymoon, everyone is still on honeymoon, but what kind of personalized honeymoon package that you can prepare? Not only putting some, flowers, beautiful flowers in the pool, or a private dinner, etc. But they want to see something more personalized, and that will be it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ginastra. That was very, very relevant. Okay, Hisham, I think we're good. We don't have for the moment any more questions.
All right. Okay, perfect. Thank you all for joining us today. Hope you found the session insightful. So again, please feel free to book your one-on-one session with any of our specialists to ask questions about distribution, availability, rate, or the different topics that we covered in the earlier sessions. So we're here to help just guide you in the right direction and give you a bit of insight, what kind of data you should look at, and the best practices. So feel free to book your sessions, at any time. We'll be happy to help you. So if you have more, if you want to know a bit more about digital marketing, the online performance part, you could always cop our book. It's available on Amazon, on Kindle, and paper versions. So feel free to check that out. And if not, join us next week for another webinar where we will kind of wrap up the 4 previous webinars into one and give you really specific website best practices at each stage of the booking process. So thank you all for joining us. It was a pleasure again, and see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next
Bye.
Thursday.